else that I'm just friends with and interact with, is to live a better overall life. As we just settle down in the room, just because we'll wait till everybody kind of takes their seats, let me just talk about David Tian, Ph.D. I actually first heard about David, from the academic world. I had friends who are, just tremendously intelligent guys. But then I heard about him in the dating world here, and there. And he was on the other side of the world in Singapore. And it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And after a while, you start to get these clients who are just like, no, man, no, this guy. And I'm like, is he a professor or something like that? Anyway, it turns out that he went from professor to being this like amazing dating coach. He has a radio show. He's kind of like the source of so much going on in all of Asia when it comes to dating and seduction and lifestyle. And what I see from this guy is living a good, clean life, a solid message. I really respect him for that. I've talked to him on the phone and interacted with him. We've just shared different friendships and stuff like that. It's great to finally meet him and shake his hand just a couple hours ago. Let's bring him onto the stage. Welcome, David Tian.
Thank you.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
See you.
Yeah.
Oh. Take it away, man.
Thank you.
Let me actually just move this a little bit.
It is an honor to be here. Really, flew in from Singapore and really pumped up to be speaking in front of you. I remember back in the day when the 21 convention was just starting up and seeing the videos on YouTube and thinking, wow, this is such an amazing opportunity. And the fact that Anthony was putting up these videos for free back then was without any charge. There's no like $9.99 for the first week and 2 months later you can cancel it, all that stuff. It was just free. And now I'm really honored to be part of that lineup and to contribute to that. So great to meet Steve and Anthony. I want to thank them both for the invitation and great to see them finally in person. Now, being out in Singapore, I'm sort of isolated from all my mentors. So a lot of my training and coaching was over Skype. I flew in about once every year or so back to North America to do to check in with my professors for my research, as well as to hook up with my mentors. And that was it. I get my once a year thing. So a lot of what I did was just based on a few Skype calls here and there, a bunch of emails, but really a lot of it out of my own experience. And what I'm giving you today is a talk called Honesty as the Cornerstone of Attraction. And I found that for myself, when I discovered the power of honesty and being genuine, it really took my social life to the next level. And I hope to show you how that came about. What I'm going to show you today is also inspired by my own study. My Ph.D. was in Asian cultures at University of Michigan, and I was in Beijing for 4 years before I moved to Singapore. All of that was in research in East Asian religion, East Asian philosophy. And what I'm showing you today actually resonates very closely with over thousands of years of East Asian philosophy, religion, including Confucianism, Neo-Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that, but I think it's pretty cool that a lot of what I'm covering today has been thought and taught by very wise men throughout the ages, as well as in the Christian tradition through spiritual cultivation and specifically in the Jesuit tradition. So a lot of this is not PUA. I mean, my background was pickup, I guess. That's where I came out of it in 2005 after being separated from my wife at that time and then getting a divorce and having to just pick up the pieces as a 30-year-old Asian dude in a town of 100,000 people, mainly white, where all the hot girls were 20-year-old sorority girls who didn't go to clubs because they weren't of age. And you had to break into the frat. And the frat houses were worse than clubs because in a club you could just flash your black Amex or pay some money, buy a table. But in a frat, they don't really care how much money you have. So it was really like working from the ground up. And so what I'm teaching you today is a lot of it is going to be based on what inspired me through over 15 years of university study, and then going on to be a professor at the National University of Singapore teaching Asian philosophy. So although it's coming out of this pickup world, most of this is really not having anything to do with PUA, and it's been 3 or 4 years since I've been in that community. So it's refreshing today, actually, on this panel, to be sandwiched between two fitness talks. It makes me feel, like very decreepified as a result of that. So as I'm showing you, there's honesty. And there are two parts. Right? We're going to look at the inner and the outer. Right? Very simple, inner and outer. We're going to start with the inner. The inner part of using honesty is basically, I'm going to use the example of overcoming limiting beliefs. Your limiting belief could take any form. It could be you're too short, you're too tall, you're too fat, you're too thin, you're too black, you're too white. Whatever it is that you are, you can just change that into a limiting belief. It's amazing how many limiting beliefs there are out there. So let's take a limiting belief. All right. So you're going to use honesty to overcome limiting beliefs. And there are many ways, actually, to overcome limiting beliefs. You could use NLP and hypnosis, and I've used those to good effect in the past. But that takes specialized training and specialized skills and knowledge that maybe you don't have. So what I'm going to show you today, the method of basically psychological archaeology, is something that you can use without any specialized skill or training. And probably you've already been using it to a limited extent. You just need to do more of it. So take a limiting belief. You start off by asking, is it true or false? So on the handout, I have it just written out in linear form, just horizontally. On this whiteboard here, I'm going to use it, I'm going to show it like a tree. Like if you like truth trees or decision trees, it'll be from top down. I don't really need this. So. Okay, true or false? Let's take a belief, I don't know, let's say I'm too old to get girls I like. Right, let's take old age, right? All right, you feel that one? Okay, so let's say you're, I don't know, I hear this from my clients who are in their 40s and they like girls who are in their 20s. So they're thinking, oh, I'm 20 years older than that girl. It's a limiting, this is going to limit my opportunities in dating. What can I do? Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to reflect. Reflect, okay? And along with reflection is research. Reflect, research. Okay, so that's the first. So you notice under inner, I had R&R. R&R, which is when you have a limiting belief at the Aura Dating Academy, we say you need some R&R. It's just reflecting and reframing. So the first is reflecting. First, with reflecting, you ask yourself, is it true that women will not like a man who is older? And then you just do some research. Go on Google, look through the psychology journals, the science journals, go ask some experts. And it turns out that the research shows that women actually prefer men who are older. A minimum of 2 years, but up to 5 years in many cases. And that as women age, they actually prefer men who are even older. So a woman in her 30s will prefer a man in his 40s. And a woman in her 40s will date a man in his 60s. That's because as you age, your life experiences tend to be less different, versus 18 and 21. So you do the research and you find out, hey, actually being older is an advantage in dating. All right, so then you say, well, then it must be false that women don't like me because I'm old. So that limiting belief is false. But if it's a deep-seated limiting belief, just learning that first surface level of it won't destroy the limiting belief. You're like, yeah, okay, I know rationally that I shouldn't feel this way, but I still do, right? And then you need to condition your mind. Condition. You do mental, emotional conditioning. So this idea of research, then conditioning, is going to be repeated on the rest of the truth tree. I'll just show you very briefly how you can do conditioning on old age. So let's say you're an older guy, you want to date, you're in your 40s, you want to date a girl in her 20s. One easy way of conditioning it is looking at images or seeing videos or meeting people in real life, guys who are older dating younger women. And the world is replete with these. Take an example, Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones, she's 20 years his junior, right? You can just, instead of having Justin Bieber photos like you probably do all over your wall, you want to take those down and replace them with representations of the ideal you, of the life that you want to lead, of the reality that you want to have as your own, right? So we have these ideas, these limiting beliefs that come to us through various means. They could be through the media. They could be through society, through our parents or our peers. What you need to do is cut out all of the negative sources that are giving you these limiting beliefs and replace them with empowering sources that support the belief, that support the powerful belief. So for instance, you could get posters or blow up from your digital camera or from your computer, get them in full color, and just put them up on your vision board or put them up on your wall, have them on your desktop background, have them on your iPhone to constantly remind you and craft a new reality for you mentally. That not only is it normal for an older guy to date a younger woman, but it's actually normative in the sense that this is the way it should be. If you're a powerful man, you should have a younger woman. If you're a hot girl, you should have an older man. And suddenly, that switch changes. Instead of feeling bad that you're older, now you see, hey, actually, it's the way it should be, right? If you can do the same if you're a younger guy wanting to date older women, right? You just need to condition your mind to seeing that as the norm. So let's take that was old age, but let's say, you're 20 years older. The science doesn't show that women prefer men who are 20 years older when they're in their 20s. The science shows, well, they prefer men who are 2 to 5 years older. You're way older. This is not going to work. So in this case, maybe the problem is that limiting belief is actually true. See, then you got to do a little bit more research. So you ask yourself, well, why would women prefer men who are older? And the research shows the reason why is because men who are older tended to have more power, right? In caveman times and back in the day, if you were older, you had more time to amass resources, to amass social alliances, to amass power. Now, if you're at 45 years old and you have less money and less power socially than you did when you were 25, this is going to be a problem. Right? You're not increasing in social value. Therefore, that might be the reason why those women are not attracted to you despite your older age. Right? So then if it's a true belief, if it's true that if your limiting belief is true, right, that your older age is inhibiting you, and in this case you would find it's not the older age per se, but it's the social power that you have, if that's limiting you, then you say, okay, if it's true, can I change it? Can I change it? I'll take another example of a limiting belief. I'm too fat to get girls. I'm too fat. Maybe I'm 200 pounds, 200 kilograms overweight. And this research shows, yes, that will inhibit you. That will prevent you. That will be a big disadvantage for you when you're trying to attract women. It is true, right? Maybe that's a belief and it's limiting you, but it's a true limiting belief. So it does you no good to just, in the face of the facts, just conditioning yourself into believing, yeah, being overweight is going to help me. Because you can change it, right? Can you change it? Yes or no? Now, if the answer is yes, then change it. And I'm so glad that I'm speaking before and after fitness talks and diet talks, because that is one of the most, the research shows that almost anybody's body composition can change, given the right amount of time and effort. There's no excuses for that. So if it's about your health or your diet, or that you're overweight, I've met guys who've lost 100 kilograms in a year, amazingly, through a lot of discipline. But it can be done. So change it. If you have a shitty lifestyle, if you live at home with mom in her basement, and all you do on the weekends is play World of Warcraft, change it. Right, that is a limiting belief. If you say, well, girls won't like me because I live in my mom's basement and I have no money and I play video games all weekend. Change it. There's no point in trying to reframe or condition that belief, because it's true and you can change it. But what about the ones you can't change? Now, this is where the money is, right? Everyone's wondering, well, it is true that I have this disadvantage and I can't really do anything about it. What are some examples of those? Well, when I was starting out 8 years ago, there were two particular limiting beliefs that haunted me that were very deep-seated, right? These were height and race. I was raised in North America, where it turns out that in America, the average height of an adult male is 5'9", or about 1.75 meters. It seems like Australia is about the same, 1.75, just judging by the height of the urinals. Thank you. All right, getting a laugh. So, it didn't help that I was on the basketball team and the volleyball team from junior high through high school, because every time I showed up on the court, I was continually reminded of how short I was. And then in junior high, we were all the same height, because puberty had just started hitting. So I could play forward on the basketball team, and I wasn't the setter yet on volleyball. I was a striker. And then we went to high school, and everyone shot up in height, and suddenly I was a setter and the guard, and I had to relearn the game. And it just became a lot harder to score in many ways. So that became, if I'm doing that, that was my passion, volleyball and basketball, for 6 years or so. And then making my passion remind me of my limiting belief was very hard for height. So it was a very deep-seated one. Now this is the second half of R&R. If it's true and you can't change it, you'll need to reframe it. And again, you're going to have to do research. That's the first step always. So I did some research when I realized, hey, I have to figure out this dating thing. The research showed that, yeah, the average height of the adult male in America was 5'9". But globally, it turns out, after just a little bit of research, the average height of the adult male was 5'7", 1.7 meters, which was my height. So I was average. Yeah, living in that society in America where the average height was taller, and I was playing basketball and volleyball and watching basketball a lot, I was continually reminded of how short I was. But actually, globally speaking, I'm average. That helped, actually, right away. But it won't help a guy who's 5'1" or 1.55 meters, right? But just that little bit of research already helped give me some more confidence. It also helped that I was living globally. So I was based in Beijing at that time when I was doing the research. And even though in northern China, I think the average height of an adult male seemed to be about 5'9" as well, it helped to know that, now the whole globe is my playing field, that I wasn't limited to a specific society or a town, that I could meet women and meet the love of my life anywhere in the world. And given that, then, I'm average there. I could, of course, change it partly. I think there is like height enhancement surgery, but it's incredibly painful and risky. So that wasn't really a real option. But have you ever gone through the New Rock stage? Is that New Rocks? That back in the day when they used to wear those crazy ass boots that were really high, those pumps. I never thankfully went through that, but I did get boots that had a nice 2-inch heel that were very subtle, so you couldn't see them. But it didn't help because the girls at the clubs would wear 3-inch heels. So, I'd gain 2 inches, but then they'd still gain an inch on me, and then, of course, they're taller than me. So there's not that much I could have done about height. I did as much as I could. I also learned some body language tips, some presence. I made my presence bigger. I went around telling people if they ever asked that I'm 5'9", and they believed me, no problem. However, so you got to reframe that limiting belief. For example, I think of it like a handicap, actually. Like being shorter is a handicap in life when it comes to dating women. So it's like in golf. You just gotta, if you score the same as the other guy, but you had a handicap, it just shows that you're that much better. So the limiting belief that I attacked it directly with this affirmation that it takes a stronger man to date a taller woman. It takes a stronger man to date a taller woman. I didn't even have to really add it to my affirmations list because it just seemed logical to me. But once I realized that, it became the foundation of how to attack this limiting belief, the foundation of that empowering belief. I dated these taller women. Did I mention that earlier before the break? The stories about, they would try to poke fun at me at my height when I first started dating them. They're very subtle jabs. But over time, those jabs started to disappear because I just wasn't bothered by them. And then they just moved on to other things. But what you find is with women who will challenge you, it's for your own good. Because they see these insecurities. I know a lot of guys in the pickup world who want to find a drama-less girl. There's all this talk about overcoming drama. I don't like drama. And it's great because if you have a lot of drama, you can't really focus on other areas of your life, right? But there's a reason why there could be drama. Like in a woman who otherwise is not going to produce a lot of drama, but when she's with you, is really pushing at you. She's doing that because she sees these insecurities that you really shouldn't have. And she thinks they're funny. She thinks you should get over them. But her unconscious way of doing that is to poke at you like that until you're so strong that it doesn't have any effect on you. Then her job is done. Then she moves on to the next insecurity. This is actually good for you, all right? So you don't want a girl who's just going to treat you with kid gloves, right? And none of these women did that for me. They just incessantly teased me about my height. So with the reframe, I then continued to do research, right? So even with that reframe, let me just show you how powerful that can be. I was doing way back in, 2008, boot camp with Nick Sparks and Jonathan Hudson in New York. And I just take these trips once or twice back to North America. So women in America tend to be bigger boned than I'm used to in Asia. But these 3 girls were seated, and I just went up to them, started talking to them. And then I noticed within the first 10 seconds that the girl in the middle, her knees were really high. Like she's seated on a bench, but when she was crossing her legs, but they were like up to here. I mean, like thinking, if she stood up, I bet she'd be really tall, like a basketball player. Anyway, we were talking, and then she just said, "You're too short for me." Just like out, and then there's like silence. No one was saying anything. So I said, just the first thought that came to my mind was, that empowering belief. It takes a stronger man to date a taller woman. So I just blurted that out. And then she said, "Yeah, that's so true." And the other girls are like, yeah, yeah. And then they started asking me all these questions. I'm like, can't even do it on me. So that reframe really helps. But then I needed to do more research, right? Research into men who, for example, I wanted to find examples of other men who were my height who were dating taller women. And then, of course, this led into conditioning. So notice the research conditioning pair, right? So an easy one was Tom Cruise, right? So I just started looking at all these photos of him with Nicole Kidman, him with Katie Holmes, and him with pretty much any woman in Hollywood. And it was ridiculous because the height disparity was insane. I don't think he even tried to hide it. He didn't wear pumps or those concealable heels in the shoe thing. And the girls didn't conceal it either. The girls wore heels. So it was even more monstrous. You know, they were 4 inches taller than him, but with heels, suddenly they're half a foot taller. But he didn't care. He was just powerful, just there. And I began to condition my mind into seeing that as an example of a powerful man, because he was that much more powerful than the men who were the same height as those women. I conditioned my mind by, I stopped watching any TV show that made fun of short men. I cut out of my life anybody except the girls I was dating who were making fun of short men. I remember these sitcoms that would make fun of short men. I stopped watching sitcoms entirely. You know, if you feel very needy a lot, like you meet this girl, you date her, and suddenly you're attached before you even had sex, and you don't really know that much about her, but you're just attached. It might be because you're watching a lot of Korean romance comedies or Korean dramas. That's the case in Asia. I don't know about here. I don't think you guys are watching Korean stuff. But, or maybe you're listening to some really sappy songs. You got to cut that out. So conditioning is both positive and negative. You cut out all the bad influences and replace them with positive ones. So Tom Cruise, another guy who I discovered early on, was a guy who dated, let me see if I can get this straight, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Mandy Moore, Lindsay Lohan, Ashley Simpson, Rihanna for a little while, and you might not have ever heard his name. You would probably recognize him because he was in That 70s Show, Fez. Remember Fez? Wilmer Valderrama, right? This guy's like a C-list TV actor, and he was dating A-list teen actresses at the time. And this guy had game. You know, it wasn't because he had more status or more money. He was 5'7" Latino guy. And I just printed out all the images I could of this guy, and I started to emulate him and learn as much as I could about him. And this is just identity work. Right? So identity work with conditioning. Other things you can do with your conditioning that you maybe already are doing, of course, they're your visualizations and your affirmations. In the Aura Dating Academy, we have a 2-hour class just on visualizations and affirmations, so I can't go into much more detail here. But also the identity work. And in Aura Dating Academy, we have a 2-hour class just on identity and archetypes. And with that, basically, you want to decide who your ideal self is. You just make a list. I remember one of my school friends back in Toronto we knew each other since 10 years old. Around the time he went to college, he decided he was going to be James Bond, minus the MI5 affiliation. He was Canadian, Chinese guy, a little bit shorter than me. But he just made a list of all the things James Bond could do, and over the course of about 12 years or so, he just went out and learned them all. One at a time, just tackled them all. That's how, he wrote me in about halfway through to do ballroom dancing and salsa, but he also learned how to sail boats. He got this yachting license. He skydived. He learned Kempo, karate, jiu-jitsu, what's that thing? Kendo with the swords. He learned how to fire guns. He learned how to fly airplanes. He learned how to jump out of planes like on a regular basis. And he was an engineer, started off as an engineer in the top engineering school in Canada, and then went on to do a JD and MBA. Is now a law partner somewhere. So he just went one at a time, just checking the list off, and became his ideal self. And now he's happily married with some kids. And you can do the same thing, actually. And you can do it mentally, not just through skills. Right? So let's say you want to look a certain way, or talk a certain way, or stand a certain way, or move a certain way. How are you going to be that way? Well, the first step is to find somebody who's already doing or living that ideal life. So if you're a shorter guy, you find a shorter guy who's dating taller women, if that's what you want. Right? So that's what I did. I just replaced in my mind, I inundated my mind with those images. And that's where the Christian spiritual cultivation comes into play, as well as the Buddhist, pretty much any real religious cultivation comes into play. You remove the influences of the world, the carnal world, the sinful world. Don't listen to MTV and all that. You got to throw that out of your house and replace it with the Word of God. That should be, just take out all the pollution and replace it with the good stuff. And it's the same structural framework. I just changed the content. right? So now it's about how attractive you want to be and what limiting beliefs you want to replace. And another one is race. You wanted to get to that, right? And that was a big one for me. Now, with race, there are a lot of other things that I could say because it's such a complicated thing. In addition to conditioning, you should think about compensating. Now, compensating might sound bad, but let's put it this way. If height is one of your issues, let's say you're 20% shorter than the guys you're competing with, well, then you should be 20% more muscular. You know, I think if it's sort of like Dungeons and Dragons, you get your intelligence, the strength, and all that, and you're maybe low on intelligence, but you can pop it up on strength so you can balance it out. And that's something you can do. You can actually compensate for it. And that's something I saw in every area of my life. I wanted to, if I found any disadvantages that I had, I would make up for them in other ways. Now with race, like let's take the Asians in America, in North America, Canada. I know that the best. And I think it's very similar to Australia, with Asians in Australia. What are some of the negative stereotypes that Asians have? Well, let me help you out because you're not all Asian here, so you may not realize this. Asians are effeminate, they're passive, they're pushovers, they're passive-aggressive, they're soft skin like girls, they have small penises, they're nerdy, they don't know how to talk to people, they're sheltered, they live with mom, they're robots, they have no facial expressiveness, they're like poker face, things like that. Okay, those are pretty negative. And what are some positive things, though? There are some pros and cons to everything. What are some positive things? Well, the upside is that the Asian stereotype is that they're industrious, hardworking, they're disciplined, they're good with computers, they're good with math, you know, they're intelligent, they're stable, dependable, they're going to be responsible and mature, and those are good things. And in fact, all of those traits that I've just mentioned are universally attractive to women, as the evolutionary psychology has shown. So those are good things. However, you're missing all of the sexual parts, and that's where the negativity is. Now, if that's the case, then what you can do is you realize what the pros and cons are, as the way the world views you, and you can flip that around. One way that this came home to me was when I was in Toronto. I was house sitting for a professor in a pretty nice condo in downtown Toronto. Coming home from school, the guy behind the desk, this is my first month living there, he said, hey, our computer systems are down. I don't know what's wrong. Can you help us out? Can you fix this? Like, what? I don't know shit about computers. Why do you think I know about computers, you know? Like, no, I can't. And I was thinking, at first I was pretty offended, but then after a few minutes I realized, actually, that's a cool racism to have. Like, if it's like a positive racism, he thinks I'm smarter than I am. That's not so bad. I'll live with that. And that was the kernel of this thought, that the positive parts of it I can keep, but then I directly counteract the negative parts of it as soon as possible. So if the negativity associated with being an Asian guy are that you're effeminate, you're a pushover, you're not sexy or sexual, then right off the bat, I want to show people that I am not that. Right? So you could go extreme and you get tattoos and piercings and go real bad boy, riding a Harley Davidson, or something like that, right? And I've known quite a few guys in America who've tried to do that. But you just show that you're not effeminate, that you're not a pushover, that you're assertive, you're aggressive when you need to be, that you're dominant. And her first thought when she sees you won't be that you're Asian, right? Her first thought will be power, charm, sexy. And then secondarily, she'll think, wait, he's Asian. But clearly, you're not the Asian that she's used to seeing because you don't match the effeminate stereotype. But all of the good stuff is still there because she'll think, oh, he's Asian, so he must be dependable, stable, intelligent, and all that other stuff, even though that may not be true at all, right? So it's working for you. And this is what I call the contrast principle. When you compensate properly, the contrast principle. Because let's imagine in America, the African-American male is hyper-masculinized. It's not controversial to say that. This is the subject of a lot of gender studies, research on African-American males' perceptions or impressions of them. And it works against them when they want to go into the corporate world. But imagine a black guy with tattoos and piercings, just looking badass. He's not really going to stand out because if the first impression or if the stereotype is that he is that way, then he's just another African-American male, unfortunately for him, right? And if it's the same with Asians, if we just look like we have pocket protectors and we work for IBM or something, then if we're another guy who matches that stereotype, we don't stand out, we're just another Asian. However, with the contrast principle, if you work against your stereotype, if you were a black guy with tattoos, you wouldn't stand out, but if you're an Asian guy with tattoos, you would stand out. If the stereotype is that you don't have tattoos. You see, so the contrast principle will work for your advantage, to your advantage, if you can identify what their first impressions are that are negative, and you do the opposite of that as a first impression. Right? So that can work right away. And in addition, along the lines of the contrast principle, is the principle that, especially for Asians, that there's actually something really good about being the minority race. There's something really good about being the minority race. Because you get to be exotic. Exotic is good. Anything different is good, right? Because it generates intrigue and curiosity. But you don't want to be too exotic. But not too much. But not too exotic. Exotic but not too exotic is the principle. For instance, if you're dating a girl from rural America, I don't know, Montana, maybe, and there's no sushi restaurant there at all in the whole city. For your first date, you take her across county lines to eat sashimi. And you insist that she uses chopsticks and that she adds a lot of wasabi. It's probably not going to be a great date. It's probably too much for her, right? It's too exotic. But she likes the fact that you're different. She likes the fact that you know a little bit about Buddhism, because she wants to do some yoga and meditation. She's into that. And that is where you need to start. You can be relatable. You need to be approachable. But using the exotic part of you, the fact that you're different and that you come from this different world that she doesn't know anything about but is kind of curious about. You can play that up. So these are all ways of taking advantage of a seemingly limiting belief. Right? You started off saying, as an Asian person, non-Asian girls will not like me. It's true. Actually, the research has shown that a really great online dating study by Dan Ariely and some others showed that as an Asian man, you would have to make $247,000 more a year to compete on par with the white dude on online dating. That really sucks for Asian guys. Yeah, sure, they make a little more, but that's crazy. So it's true that it's a major handicap. Can you change it? You can't change your race, right? But you can reframe it, do the research, and then condition through visualizations and affirmations. In this case, you'd have to find people of your race, guys of your race, who are dating beautiful women, and make that replace whatever you're seeing as representations. What was really great for me was moving to Asia. Actually, I think that's one of the problems with some of the Asian dating coaches in America is that they're just basically becoming white. They're like, oh, the white guys are dominating. Let's just be as white as we can, right? Or like, be even a little bit more and we'll wear Harley-Davidson motorcycle boots everywhere. But being in Asia, what helped was, when you walk around in America, you see on the billboards, everyone's white. You see on the cover of the magazines, everyone's white. You watch the Hollywood movies, everyone's white. Everything is supporting the limiting belief. That sucks. But moving to China, looked at the billboards, they were all using Chinese models. The TV was all Chinese people. Everything was different. So it helps reinforce my empowering belief. Now, whatever yours is, you just have to find the environment that will support the empowering belief you want to adopt. And in addition, through my research in Asian cultures and literature, I found that actually I became very proud of my Asian heritage. That's another thing that you would do with your research. That whatever limiting belief you have, if you can't change it, become proud of it. Become proud of it, because that's part of who you are. And look for things to be proud of. That might take some more research. Right? I found it's astounding that in Singapore, Indian guys don't know shit about India. Like they don't know anything about the Indian culture or the history or the religions. They're just Indian. And they kind of want to repudiate that whole past and become just Singaporean, which is like a 50-year-old culture. It's not as rich as what they came from. To become proud of that. I found that through my study of East Asia that there were actually not only powerful men, emperors and kings and khans from Mongolia, but also ladies' men, the equivalent of Casanova. No one told me about that when I was starting out. But I found works of literature that were over 1,000 years old, Tale of Genji, The Pillow Book, Dream of the Red Chambers, The Golden Lotus. These all showed these Chinese or Japanese men who were incredibly attractive to the ladies. And they had a specific style, and it was a courtier style. Back then it was always, the disparity between the upper and lower classes were so great that even in Europe, you would have very effeminate men who were incredibly attractive to women. Casanova, the Don Juans. Right? They took care of their appearance, they powdered their faces, they took a lot of care over their hair and all of that. So yeah, that's effeminate. Maybe that's part of the problem for the Asian guy. He's too effeminate. But actually that can work for you if your outward appearance is like a dandy, like a gay fashion designer kind of thing, right? Girls let their guard down. And it's great if you like the things that girls like. Right? You don't have to be the big jock. If you like the things that girls like, girls will love you. They're going to have you around all the time. They're going to ask you along to their tea times and their fashion shows and all that. That's great. So if this is their view of Asian guys, work with it, man. Use it, and especially if that's what you like. If you like fashion, then make that part of your identity. It's great. But here's the one thing you can't do. You can't make that part of your personality in the sense of you can't be a weak man. Right? So if you read the literature of these Asian seducers, they were all very powerful personalities. They were independent, they were strong, they were assertive, they were very direct when they wanted something. And they could be hot and cold very easily. They had game, right? They could walk away from a situation, and that's often what created a chase dynamic. But their outward appearance wasn't like the jock or the military man. Right? They had their own way of doing things. So as an Asian guy, you don't have to sell out. You don't have to just dress like the white guy, talk like the white guy, and just be the white guy hoping the girl won't notice that you have yellow skin. That's going to fuck you up, because that's going to make you, that limiting belief's going to go even deeper into your psyche. Bring that out and make that something you're proud of. Put that out front, right? So if you reframe it as something that can work for you, and then you do this conditioning through research, then you can see how you don't need to know any specialized skills or techniques. You just need to do a little bit of research and then condition your identity, your new identity. So with all of this, it requires honesty. Most guys are not going to be honest with their limiting beliefs. So that's the first step. You have to know what your limiting beliefs are. You make a list of those. What's holding me back? And be brutally honest with yourself, right? And then just apply reflection and reframing to the process. And it's very simple. Here's the decision tree here. Okay, so that's the inner part. I'm going to move into the outer. Okay, and another term for this, other than R&R, is psychological archaeology. And psychological archaeology is what I'm going to be doing as well when we get to the outer part. Actually, I was going to entitle the talk that, but I thought it would be too esoteric. Okay, outer. Now, this is the part that most guys want to hear. Because whenever I give talks on dating, the guys always want to know what to say. But if you take care of the inner part of it, then you don't need to worry about what to say. Right? Because the thoughts will already be there. You just have to say what's in your mind. So let's get you started, though, on how to understand how to apply the inner part into making it the outer part. So here's a formula about attractiveness. Being attractive equals emotional strength plus honesty, or expressing yourself honestly. Ash, being attractive equals emotional strength plus expressing yourself honestly. And it's simply a cyclical process of becoming stronger and stronger and more attractive. Cyclical process. What's the cyclical process? It's you be as strong as you can and then express yourself honestly. And if you're still insecure, you're going to hit up against this wall, but that's all you got. So a lot of guys, for example, I'll give you that example of when I was in the car, the taller girl I was dating said that remark about her cousin, having a cousin my height. That's so strange. Oh, I found someone your height. Now, I could just pretend like it didn't hit. Just ignore it. But it sort of bothers me. It's nibbling away at me, the insecurity there. Now, if I'm not honest, then I can't grow. Right? And I also have nothing to say. Because if I say something pretending like it didn't affect me, guess what? Smart girls, they'll pick up on that. Girls who had some dating experience. And most people actually can tell if you're lying, unless you're a really good actor, because of the power of mirror neurons in our brain. We pick up emotions. We may not know the reasons why you feel that way, but we feel like something's off. If you can just free yourself and stop lying, stop pretending to be somebody you're not, that's going to be great. I'll give you another example. Let's say you're used to slouching. You're a sloucher. It's pretty common in Asia where they eat like sort of slouching. or they got the backpacks, so they're slouching. And now you've learned that you've got to stand up straight. You've got to have good posture. But the first day you do it, you go to the club, and you're standing like a robot. The girl's like looking at you. Maybe it's one of your old acquaintances. She's looking at you like, why are you standing like that? You're so weird now. But you know this is right, but it's not natural for you yet. You could say, oh, nothing. I'm not doing anything weird. I'm just all right. But it hurts you. You're like, I'm working so hard at this thing. And it's hurting you. You can't just ignore it. So she's talking about some other topic, but you're still thinking about that. It's too fucking late. You can only be honest. Use honesty. So just say what's in your mind. You say, well, I used to slouch a lot, but this guy told me I should stand up straight because it's more attractive, and I'm working on it, which is the truth. That's all you got. And that's the best thing you can say. Pretending to be better than you are, especially if you try to verbalize something, is horrible. The girls will see right through it, as well as more powerful people. They can tell when you're bullshitting. Don't bullshit. It's too much stress. Just tell the truth. So you see, when you hit up against that wall, you can't deal with it. Emotionally, you're not strong enough. Obviously the best response is to not even notice it. You think, oh, that's cute. She's trying to tease me. That's cute. Yeah, I see that. And it doesn't even bother you. You think it's funny, right? But you're not there yet. You're not strong enough. So don't pretend. It's like the guys who work out, right? They're working out and they're lifting too heavy. They're like the guys swinging the weights because everyone else is lifting that weight and they're just trying to swing it. And they're not going to grow. You look at them like, this is ridiculous. If the only thing you can curl is a 2-pound weight because you're that weak, curl the 2-pound weight. Don't pretend or you won't grow. Right? That's when you get respect. Right? When you're in there lifting to your max, but you're keeping good form. I remember when I had to do a strip set with one of my trainers, we started out, curling at a good weight, and then by the end of it, I couldn't even curl the bar. Like it was just a bar with no weight on it. I was just struggling. And I started swinging. He said, lean up against the wall. I'm leaning up against the wall. I couldn't even curl, and he's like spotting me with his fingers. And then these girls walk by. I'm like, fuck. When I first started, I'm like, no, man, let's put this one down. He's like, no, keep going. Like, it's burning like crazy. But that's when I grew, man. I was like, fuck it. I got to put my ego aside to grow in the gym. And that's the same, actually, when it comes to your emotional strength. There's going to be times when you wish you didn't feel that way. Well, too fucking bad. You do, and that's the only way you can grow. If you pretend to cheat, or if you cheat, you're never going to grow. And by the way, this is inspired by 15th century philosopher from China named Wang Yangming. I've written some academic articles on, this is the most famous Neo-Confucian philosopher, arguably. And he had a doctrine called the unity of knowledge and action, where he taught that, and this is applied to moral theory, moral life, that if you don't apply what you learn, if you don't apply your knowledge, if you don't act on it, then you don't really know it. It's just theoretical knowledge. For instance, you could theoretically know that height is not an issue, but if when push comes to shove, you don't follow through on that, you don't have the right mindset to back it up, you don't really know it. That was his theory, real knowledge. You need to acquire real knowledge. And the way to get there, just like he says, actually, Wang Yiming, is that there's a cyclical process of continuing to try. Right? For instance, the examples he used were for moral philosophy. Let's say you know that you ought to try to save a drowning child in the river. You know that theoretically. I ought to risk my life to save this drowning child, this innocent child. But then, let's say you're confronted with it. So that was an example, like this drowning child. But you freeze. You don't want to risk your life now. Then you don't really know that moral principle. Right? And the same applies in dating. To really know where that wall is, you have to tune into your own instincts. You know when there's that off feeling, like, oh, that little tug in your conscience, or that feeling where you're not totally comfortable now. Pay attention to that. Don't hide it. You need to develop emotional awareness of yourself. Real power comes from self-knowledge, right? Emotional intelligence. That's how the change and transformation occurs. So pay attention to those little tugs in your heart. It's like little, that hit me, that little shit test got me, or she's walking away and talking to some other guy now, I thought she was mine, that hurts. Pay attention to all of that, because that's the content that you're going to use for your verbal material. And that's what will help you to grow. Right? That's where your weakness is, that's where your wall is, that's where the edge of your comfort zone is. And you need to pay attention to that. That's sort of like when I'm so glad I'm sandwiched between two fitness talks. It's like when you're lifting, the first, let's say you're trying to get it's a 10 rep set, and you're getting up to, the first 6 reps you can do pretty smoothly, and then those last ones, you're struggling to do those. You need a spotter in the last rep. That's where the growth happens. The first 6 were just a warm up. In fact, if you can skip those, you save some time, because where the real growth comes from, that part that you can't handle. You're struggling. It's coming back down, and you're just struggling. Right? That's where the growth is, and emotionally, that's where the maturity is. You've got to get to that edge. And if you can live on the edge, like example of David Data's wonderful book, The Way of the Superior Man. He talks a lot about living on the edge. He doesn't mean like, I don't think he means living on the edge like risking your life all the time. Living on the edge emotionally, where you're at the edge of your comfort zone, where maybe these insecurities are happening, or that neediness, or that jealousy feeling. Sit with that. That's where the growth happens. Feel it. Learn what it feels like, right? Because in emotion, if you want to get control of your emotion, you have to understand what it's composed of. This is a pretty standard emotion theory that you'll find in philosophy and psychology. Emotion is composed of two components, and you'll see that at the bottom of your handout in bold print. Phenomenology, which is basically, I know it's a long word, basically just means the feeling of it, how it feels physically, this physical sensation of it, plus the interpretation. The interpretation. For example, there's a snake slithering towards you. You freak out. You're like, you panic. Your heart rate elevates. This is normal. It's good. Our caveman ancestors, if they didn't feel that, they'd probably be dead. Right? Because it could be venomous, it could strangle you, it's bad. It's coming towards you. You feel fear. But then, imagine the interpretation changes. So the emotion is fear, the phenomenology is that panic thing, the elevated heart rate. The interpretation is that that's dangerous. But what if it changes? You have a pet snake. Hey, it's Todd! Actually, I don't know what you do with pet snakes. I think you just hold out your arm or something and it comes up on you. I don't know. And you're happy because the interpretation changed. If you can change the interpretation, the emotion changes. Let the phenomenology handle itself. So this is where the change occurs, in the interpretation. Most people walk around life having their emotions control them. Their neediness, the jealousy. When the girl turns them down, they're like, oh, that hurt my pride or whatever. The approach anxiety. All that is a result of the false interpretations. That's why with the inner part, we're focusing on the reasons, the true or false, yes or no, because that attacks the interpretations directly. You need to challenge these interpretations in order to change the emotion. Right? So when you feel the emotion, sit with it, because it's going to take a little while. You feel that phenomenology, you feel that feeling. Ask yourself why. All right, so the question is this, the magic question. What am I feeling? Don't just say bad. It's not going to help you. I know most men's emotional vocabulary is pretty stunted. But try to get a little bit more, is it sorrow? Is it regret? What am I feeling and why? And you're going to have to ask this why question repeatedly. My experience in coaching is that it takes 5 or 6 why questions. You just keep digging deeper and deeper. That's why it's called psychological archaeology. And then that whole thought process, that becomes what to say. You're wondering what to say? You just say this. Whatever the fuck you were just thinking. You just say it out loud, and that's your real power. At that point, you don't need any game. You don't need any negs or any openers or any bullshit. You just say whatever the fuck you're feeling. Right? Let's say she says, maybe you're on a date, so to speak. Let's say it's the second time you took this girl out, but you're at this event, this club. Right? It's like a club. And she ends up talking to a bunch of guys that you're feeling jealous. And you try to, maybe for like a half hour she's talking to that guy, then a half hour she's talking to another guy, and they look pretty cool and everything. She's not coming to you, and you're thinking, man, I brought her this thing, and it's not happening. And you're feeling off. Now, you could pretend like it didn't matter. And that would be the stronger option. The strong man wouldn't even notice. He'd think it's cute that she's trying to do something, or he wouldn't even be thinking about her. He'd be thinking about having a good time doing something else. But it's too bad. You're not that strong yet, right? It's hurting you. And so you try to be reactive. You go and hit on some other girls. I'm going to hit on this girl because she's hitting on that guy. You hit on this girl. But of course it's not going to go well because you're being reactive. She's going to sense that there's something off because you're not being honest with yourself first. Right? So then she comes back. So all of this horrible stuff, it makes it worse, right? You're hitting on these girls, it's not going that well. You try to look cool, going to your friends, it's not working that well. The whole time it's nagging at you, it's bugging you. She's talking to these guys and it's bothering you. At the end of that hour, she comes back. It's like, oh, hey, where have you been? Come on, man, I've been here the whole time, right? You're thinking. But what are you going to say? You just say whatever you've been thinking in terms of this, your psychological archaeology. Because you should sit there and think, wow, so this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like to be jealous, to be insecure. And why am I feeling jealous and insecure? And you just chart that out. You might even need to pull out your iPhone and write it all down. Because it's going to go, why? And let's say that she comes over and I'll just give you an example of a case, right? She comes over and says, hey, where have you been? And you could just tell her. You could pretend like, oh, hey, let's get a drink. I wasn't bothered. Go get a drink, and she could tell something's wrong. Right? You've got that thought in your head. Instead, just say, I brought you to this thing, and I was hoping we'd just spend some nice time together. That was pretty stupid of me to bring you to this, because there's full of dudes that want to talk to you. And of course you're going to talk to other guys. just telling the truth, right? Of course you're going to talk to other guys, but my friends are saying to me, just don't think about her, go talk to these other girls, forget about her. But it sucks. I don't know what you did to me. I can't stop thinking about you. I know I've only known you for one date. This is only a second date, so I shouldn't be feeling this way, but I just got to say, you did something to me, and it got to me a little bit, You won this one. Oh, man, it sucks. I shouldn't feel this way. Because that's the truth, right? You shouldn't feel that way, but you do. You just have to say it. I know I should be stronger, but I'm not, right? And even when I was working today, I ended up I was doing my work, but then this image of you came up in my mind. It's like, no, I can't think about her. I got to be strong. I got to be independent. I got to give her space. Now you're verbalizing all of the shit that you've been thinking because you paid attention to your feelings. If you are honest and sincere, and you're not trying to game or manipulate her, but you're just being honest and sincere, just sharing what you're saying, girls will get addicted to you because no one's like that. Dudes want to pretend like they don't feel shit. They're just the strong man. They don't feel anything. But if you're just honest and vulnerable and expose yourself for what you really are, like just, hey, this is out there. And I know, always tempered by knowledge of what emotional strength should look like. I know I shouldn't be affected. I know I should be stronger. Like when you're working out, I know I should be lifting a certain weight eventually. That's my goal. You have a goal. But you're not there yet. So you just say it. And what will happen is she gets addicted to the vulnerability. And you end up creating drama for her. That becomes very addictive. Like, oh my God, really? She's going to think, really? You care that much about me? And here I'm like struggling, like, no, I don't want to, but I do. But no, I don't want to, but I do. Now, you can see that this could actually become a technique if you're a really good actor. You could use it. Some people have. And it's also always just keep in mind, it's always most powerful when it's honest. And it's also best for your happiness. If you're just expressing yourself honestly, you're not hiding anything. You just put it all out there. And it takes a lot of strength, emotional strength to do this. Right? It takes a certain level of maturity already to do that. But the stronger you get emotionally, the more powerful honesty will be for you as an expression. The more powerful, the stronger emotionally you become, the more powerful honesty will be for you. So the step here is to simply, as you're doing this, why am I feeling this and why? You're going to be coming up against your vulnerabilities, your insecurities, your weaknesses. You need to be comfortable and content with those. Not content in the sense that you're not going to work at them, but you're going to have to deal with them as, hey, don't be ashamed of them. Let's say you're a skinny guy at the gym or you're a fat guy at the gym. You're not there yet. You haven't met your goals yet. But if you hide it, you're not going to work at it. Right? You've got to just put it out up front. For example, let's say your plan is to lose 20 kilograms in 2 months, which is actually quite a lot. So 20 kilograms in 2 months. And as you get to the 6-week mark, you're making good progress. You're feeling good. You've lost 15 kilograms and you're feeling good. And then you hit that 2-month mark and damn it, you got there. 20 kilograms of fat gone. Right? Then you celebrate. 3 days later, you just gained 3 kilograms. At the end of that first week, you get back at 5. Now you feel like shit, I backslid. Now I'm at 15. Notice that, objectively speaking, you're at the same weight as you were in the 6th week. But in the 6th week, you felt great. But now in the 9th week, you feel like shit. Why? Because it's not about the objective measure, right? It's not about how good you are, objectively speaking. It's about progress and trajectory. Do you see an upward trend? Are you getting better and better every day? That's what's important. So if you're not, you can be comfortable and content with where you are now as long as you're getting better and better. That's what will make you happy and will give you that rock-solid confidence. It doesn't matter whether you get there, actually. Because if you get there, you've reached your goal, and you don't progress, you're going to plateau, and you're only going to go down. So what matters the most is that you're making progress. How can you be comfortable and content with your flaws, Dave? That's what you're going to ask me, right? If you're making good progress, maybe you haven't fixed it all yet. Maybe you're still needy a little bit. Maybe you still get attached too easily. Or maybe you're still insecure about your height or your race or your weight or whatever. That's fine. Put it out there. Say, when you said that, that little jab against me, I'm still pretty sensitive about my weight. I know I shouldn't be. I'm trying to work on it. But man, that hurt. Damn it. That's real power. When whatever you're thinking and feeling, you just put it out there. You notice a great example of this is 8 Mile at the end. When Eminem did that rap-off, right? And the guy was like, man, they got all this shit on you. What if they say all this and all this and all this? What did he do? He just put it out there. He said, hey, you're going to say all this. Yes, I live in my mom's trailer. Yes, I got jumped by you dudes. Yes, all of this shit happened. But I know something about you, and then put that out there. But he was just honest. When you have brutal honesty, nobody can hurt you because you have nothing to hide. If you have nothing to hide, you're indestructible. So this is how to use honesty to make yourself stronger. That's the inner. Well, that's the inner. This is the outer of how to express it, the thought processes you're going through, and how to be cool with yourself even if you're not your ideal self yet, which is probably never going to happen. Because if you're progressing in life, it never ends. Right? Your life will, hopefully you'll be progressing all the way to the end. So what matters is the progress. What matters is the journey, not the goal. And the stronger you get emotionally, the more powerful honesty will be for you. All right, I want to thank you for listening so attentively. Carpe diem, seize the day, and make your life extraordinary.
All right, guys. David Tian, that was awesome. Questions we got?
Questions? Yes.
All right, one second. Let me just pass the mic.
Well, that was unreal. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's being honest.
Thank you.
I guess my insecurity, I know it's going to be specific, but it's hard. It's my disability.
Okay.
So would it still be the same with reframing and...
Can you tell me vaguely what you
I got cerebral palsy.
Okay.
So it's like... It physically impacts my muscular development and... Yeah, basically.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so your disability. I haven't worked with anyone with specifically that disability, but I've worked with people who have other physical disabilities, medical disabilities. And one of my good friends is now, used to be a fitness trainer, now he can't train because of a certain genetic thing. So I understand, partly understand where you're coming from. And what I would say is, let's go back to the inner, because that's the most important, that's the first step, is that you're going to start off with your research, right? Now, I'm not even sure if it will directly impact, but let's say it will, and you can't change it. So you're going to do research, and then you're going to do conditioning. You're going to look for people so you're going to look for guys who have physical disabilities along the same lines, may not be exactly the same. But I've worked with clients who have hearing impairments, severe hearing impairments or vision impairments. And what's amazing to me is actually there are quite a few really powerful guys who also have those impairments. Lou Ferrigno was deaf in one ear, and he had achieved so much in his life, Mr. Universe and then in TV and movies. And that's an example. I mean, that's just one example. You could just do more and more of that. And then you condition your mind into seeing that it's not actually going to be so much of a, like I'll just start off just a real surface level reframe for you, is that, and obviously the more research I can do, the better it will be. But if a girl finds out about your disability, then it's already a screen. Like, can you handle that? I'm an amazing guy, but can you handle that? How cool are you? Any girl who will stay with you past that is going to show herself as being, somebody that is mature enough or cool enough for you, that will work for you. You don't want a superficial girl. I mean, it's not just about the sex, right? So that's a great way to screen a girl right off the front, and she can't say anything about that. It's not like she can make fun of you, and it's great because my trump card is always racism. If someone gives me that, some racist comment, I just say, excuse me, are you racist? And I'm not going to confront them. I'm just going to make it very loud. And I'll just make it, just that one word, I just throw it out, make it a bit louder. Like, are you racist? Just like, what can she say to that? Like, she's going to have to tone it down. I just want, if you're honest with yourself, you're not ashamed of who you are, but you think, actually, this is who I am, and it's a condition that I have. But it means that I'm going to have to compensate in other areas of my life to be stronger. Like, I had a client who didn't have use of his legs. So he just ended up working his upper body. He became like super jacked in his upper body and could like lift himself everywhere. It was insane. Like he could do, what do you call those, muscle ups on the pull-up bar? Just like I was doing pull-ups. Like he just, and what's really cool is that it will force you to be stronger in other areas. And if you can do that, then you've got the compensation there, and you condition the belief that this is actually for your own good. And one way you can think of it is it will help you screen the women that you meet and the people that you meet. And I would even consider using that early on, like first 5 minutes or so. Put it out there. You're welcome. Okay, right, so I have to run back and forth. All right, go for it. White lies, yeah. Sure. Mm. Yeah, great. Okay, how honest should you be? Can you tell white lies? And should you tell people what you think about them if it will hurt them or cause problems, like a fight or a debate? So when I say honesty, I mean it first with yourself, honest with yourself and your insecurities. That's why for this example, I use limiting beliefs. So if you think somebody else is a fucking douchebag, you don't have to tell them, because that's not about yourself, right? And if it's white lies are great. That's one of the bases of flirting, right? So you can tell lots of white lies. A lie is white if she knows that it's a lie, or she suspects that it's a lie, and you don't care if she finds out, because that's why it's funny, right? So white lies are great. This is not about white lies. This is specifically, in this case, targeting your own insecurities and just self-lies, lies to yourself about yourself. So first be honest about where you are, and then just express that. Yeah, especially when it comes to other people, if it's about them, there are plenty of times when you don't want to tell them what you really think, because it's just not going to help anything. Yeah, thank you for that question, that clarification. Other questions? Anything? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
To a certain extent.
Sure, right.
But and in the end, and this is why your honesty speaks resonates with me very much. I've learned to be brutally honest with myself, and then in turn with chicks and stuff like that. But there's a time and place. Like if you're in a club, you're not going to explain what cerebral palsy is.
Right.
And all that sort of stuff. It just gets, into intense. So you tell them a lie.
Okay.
So, it's a football injury, or it's stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
If they're really injured, and that's what you said to them, it's a good measure of the person, because if they're really injured, they'll stop.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless.
Right.
And if eventually when you tell them if they're injured, they'll stop.
Yes. Okay, so you're saying that with cerebral palsy, in your case, it's actually a strength because they find it exotic. But to an extent, because you wouldn't use it in a club, right? You'd say it was a football injury. Great. Actually, it raises another great point that a clarification I should have made. When you're flirting and it doesn't bother you, then this won't come up. Like you're in the flow and you're gonna say whatever the fuck you want. Just say whatever the fuck you want, right? It's only when you've been hit, you feel that something inside you is off. Maybe she just made a joke about people with cerebral palsy, not knowing that you have it, and that hurt. And now if you say, oh, it's a football injury, it's gonna feel bad because you're like denying yourself. That's when you bring it out. But you don't even have to say, if you don't want to, that you have cerebral palsy. You can just also use intrigue. I have this disability. I don't think you can handle it. I don't think you can handle it. Yeah, so yeah, right. And then let her ask for it. Let her work for it, And then maybe on the date you'll tell her, I don't know, I still doubt you. I don't know if you can handle it, but we'll see. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, then you got your third leg to work on. So it's a good limp. Okay. Other questions? Thank you.
Just because this came up and you talk about pride and honesty, which is really cool. I like it. But I think what some people might interpret is honesty as a verbal honesty, and I almost think you saying that pride is the overall thing. So is that it, or is there a difference between pride and honesty, or asserting or expressing yourself? How does that come into play? Because I think I hear your overall message. It's projection of you, own it.
Right.
Rather than the specifics of I have blah 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 blah. No, it's me.
Right. Okay, so Steve, you're asking about the difference or the relation between pride and honesty in the context of this talk. So can you explain how you see them as being in conflict?
I don't. I think honesty serves pride.
Right.
In a healthy sense of pride.
Right.
Honesty serves, expression of self.
Yes.
You can express yourself by doing anything. It doesn't have to be saying something.
That's right. Yeah.
So that I was just kind of wondering,
Yeah. Okay, great. Because coming out of Christian context, pride is like the cardinal sin. So whenever I hear it, I'm like, I don't want to be associated with it. But actually, that's what I'm trying to say. When I say you got to be proud of who you are, that's exactly, if that's all you mean if that's what you mean by pride. Pride can also mean I feel better than the next guy, or I want to be better than the next guy. I think that's in a Christian context, and that's why that could be dangerous. But if it's just that you're not ashamed of who you are, if you're not ashamed of who you are, you just put it out there. That's the honesty part of it. And in fact, you can't really be proud of maybe there are the parts of you that you're not proud of yet. You pay lip service to it. Theoretically, you should be proud of it because I'm telling you to. But you haven't actually done anything about it. When a girl challenges you about it, you just pretend like it's not true. Maybe you say, it's a football injury. You don't want to tell her, for instance. Being honest is what will force the pride to come through. Maybe the first time you say it, you don't feel it. But you just train it, and eventually when you put yourself out there, and over time, it's just out there for everyone to see, then you'll be a lot more proud of it. So the honesty will support the pride.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, great question. That was deep. Do we have time for more? Okay.
Man, that was an awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.